So I will call the Planning Commission meeting for Monday, November 9th, 2020 to order. We will have the invocation first, which I'll give right now. So with all of the hubbub of the election over, I'd like to pray that we have a peaceful transition, that our new leaders are in place and in good health and will make wise decisions for all of us. So, and that the outgoing team will be graceful and will act accordingly, and that they have good health as they go out. Name, amen. And now, Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So thank you. So I'm assuming that when I call for citizen input, Lainey, has anybody signed in for this?
No, they haven't. We only
Okay.
have one person participating in the TSP, the Transportation System Plan, that's
Okay.
going to comment.
Okay. Okay. Then I'm assuming we've all had a meeting, time to read the minutes from the May 11th Planning Commission meeting. So I will entertain a motion to approve.
I'll move, this is Jeff, I'll move to approve the meeting minutes for the meeting of May 11.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Do we have any new business? Ryan? Says none.
I don't believe we do, no.
Okay, great. So we'll move on to the public hearings. And tonight, we will have 3 matters before the hearing body that require public hearings. And I'm only going to read through this this once, save everybody a little time. So all questions on the matters before us must be directed through the chair. Any evidence to be considered must be submitted to the hearing body for public access. All written testimony received both for and against shall be summarized by staff and presented briefly to the hearing body during the staff report. Testimony and evidence must be directed toward the applicable review criteria contained in the staff report, the comprehensive plan, or other land use regulations which the person believes to apply to the decision. Failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the decision maker and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue may preclude appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals based on that issue. At this time, I would ask that any member of the hearing body who has a conflict of interest on any of the 3 matters, please indicate the nature and extent of the conflict and whether you intend to participate in or abstain from hearing the present matter. Okay. Also, if any member of the hearing body has had any ex parte contact with anyone prior to this hearing, including a visit to the site, please declare the nature and extent of such contact at this time. Since we don't have an audience, we won't, we'll go from there. So, excuse me. But first, we will consider a request to construct a 4 townhouse subdivision on approximately 0.15 acres of land located on Northwest 3rd in an R2 high-density residential zone, SUB 20-03 Schneider Square subdivision. So we'll start with the staff report. Ryan?
All right, this is Ryan Potter, Senior Planner. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, good evening, Chair Savory and Planning Commissioners. This first item is a subdivision called Schneider Square. And I'm assuming everyone can see the slides that we've got up. Okay.
Yep.
So this is a small 0.15 acre infill lot in the western side of our downtown. It's between North Cedar and North Douglas Streets, and it faces onto Northwest 3rd Avenue and then the alley that transverses the block, mid-block behind it. And as Chair Savory said, this is a zone for R2 high-density residential, which allows a range of housing typologies and densities as long as they are above a minimum density of 14 units to the acre. And you can see on this slide that the zoning of the surrounding parcels is also R2 high density. So this aerial shows a little bit of the context of the project site. So it's located on the streets that I mentioned before. You can see that there's a vast range of housing typologies in this neighborhood, including apartments, townhomes, single-family houses, and a range of new and old housing. If this project seems familiar, it's because the applicant has another project that was approved last year that's just on the other side of the block, facing 4th Avenue. So this is just on the other side of the alley, facing 3rd Avenue. And the project site where the proposed subdivision is proposed is outlined there in yellow. This is the proposed preliminary plat for the project. So you can see the subdivision would be 4 equally sized lots. 2 would face the alley and 2 would face 3rd Avenue. Again, this is similar to the Bergman Square project that's been previously approved. And then you can also see on the plat that there's easements for the utilities that would provide access from the alley or the street based on the different utilities so that each lot is served. This is the proposed site plan. So this subdivision is intended to accommodate 4 townhomes that would be attached on their rear elevations. So as
Ryan,
Yeah.
Ryan, excuse me. I'm not getting any of that. I'm not seeing any of your slides.
Really,
I don't know if anybody else is, but I'm not. I've got a nice picture
we're-
of myself, probably another picture of.
They're working for me.
They're working for me.
This is Jeff.
Me too.
This is
So I'm
Jeff. They're
thinking
working
that-
for me also.
Chair Savory, I'm thinking it might be the view you're using.
Okay,
So if you scroll up to the upper right corner, you might be able to click on speaker view. You might have just clicked the wrong thing.
okay.
Did that help?
I think so.
Okay,
Yes,
perfect.
thank you.
I'm on Zoom all day, every day, so.
Chair Savory, are you seeing the site plan right now?
I am.
Okay, I'm just going to go back really quick so you can see the previous 2 slides.
Thank you. Thank you.
This is the zoning. This is the context of the site, so you can see it's got residential surrounding it. This is the preliminary plat, so you could see the 4 lots that it would be divided into. And then this is the site plan that the subdivision is intended to accommodate. So this would be 4 equally oriented and sized townhomes that are attached on the rear elevations. And then they've got a central walkway that goes down the middle. And then each lot is sized to accommodate 2 off-street parking spaces. So there would be a space in the garage and then a space on the parking on the driveway. This is the preliminary elevations for the proposed units. One of the things that we discussed in the pre-app meeting was that we've got some code language requiring front doors to either face the public realm or be up to 45 degrees from facing the front. Because of the small orientation and size of this property, it's not really possible to get a front door and a garage on each elevation if they're oriented this way. And the applicants responded to those staff comments by adding a front entryway with a pergola and then some additional windows that kind of give it more of the effect of having the front of houses. So we are appreciative to the applicant for that. So we looked at all the criteria that apply to this project when we wrote the staff report. These are all the usual suspects. The criteria comes from the subdivision portions of our code, and then also parking, the zone itself, etc. So staff determined that this project is consistent with criteria. So each lot would accommodate the off-street parking that's required. The typology of the units that would be accommodated by the subdivision are permitted outright in this zone. It meets the density of a minimum 14 units to the acre. As required, the plat identifies easements so that each lot would be connected to the public right-of-way and utilities. In this case, 2 of the units would face the alley and 2 would face the street. And then the sides, width, and orientation, which includes the lot frontage on the street, and all those items are also consistent with our code. We received just a couple comments. Staff received some comments from our city engineer and Canby Fire. And then we just had one public comment from a neighbor asking that fences or some other type of method of blocking additional noise that would come from the site would be put in place so that noise wouldn't be a factor for the neighbors. So conditions of approval that we've attached in the staff report include all the normal conditions of approval, the standard ones that you would see on any project. There were a few things that the application didn't include that ideally the consulting engineer likes to look at. So we've just included a condition emphasizing the fact that before the final plat is approved, the public improvements have to be done. And so the city engineer will be looking for the applicant to provide these additional items. And the applicant is aware of that. And these are all things that were discussed at the pre-app meeting. So the expectations are pretty set there. And then there's just conditions of approval that relate to the pergolas and then the privacy fences for the eventual units that would be placed on the site. So based on these facts, findings, and conclusions, planning staff recommends that Planning Commission approve subdivision 20-03 subject to the conditions of approval identified in the staff report.
Thank you, Ryan. Do any of the commissioners have any questions for staff?
Yeah, this is Jeff with just I guess it's just a reinforcement. In the report, it mentions that that because of the high percentage of garage frontage, that there's a number of features that'll need to be included in the structure. And I'm just expecting that staff is prepared to make sure that we get the most out of that, because if there's one aspect of this design is a little bit just slightly troubling. I think this is a great use of the land. I think it's a very innovative design. I'm very supportive of it. But I feel like the walkway access to what mounts to the front doors of these is pretty plain. And so I'm not sure there's anything that can address that. I'm not suggesting it needs to be a requirement, but wherever we can, I'd like to make sure we require the features that we can.
Right, and so when the site plan comes to planning staff, that's one of the things we check is if it fits into that category of needing a certain number of items from the design menu, then we look to make sure that it's meeting the minimum. So those include trim detail or amount of windows per front facade or overhangs. And just looking at the preliminary drawings provided by the applicant, we think that the applicant won't have any trouble meeting that. But we will review that when the site plan application comes through for the units.
Yeah, I guess my concern, and I don't think I feel there's probably no way to really address this. I think the front facades are going to be attractive and they're innovative. I'm a little concerned about what the perception is as you're walking down the sidewalk to get to your condo from the street or the alley. That looks like, it's going to be a clapboarded tunnel with a couple of windows. It looks pretty plain to me. If I were the developer, I'd be a little concerned about that, but I'm sure he's given that full thought. That's more of a comment than a question, Ryan.
Sure.
But I just want to end on a positive note. I think it's a great use of this piece of land.
Okay. Any other questions for staff from other commissioners? Okay.
Commissioner Taylor, can you hear me?
Yes. I can
Okay,
hear
good. I couldn't get the microphone to work earlier when you were talking, and I wanted to just put it out there that I actually know Jason Bristol from many years ago, between basically the years of 91 and 96, knew his family. And I just wanted to make sure that everybody was aware of that. We've not had any communication or any relationship since that time. So I just wanted to put that out there. The design looks great. Hi, Jason. So, yeah. So I had no further comments. I just wanted to make sure I put that out there. There's no conflict of interest.
Okay, great. So we can hear from Jason Bristol then here as the applicant. Jason, you have some time here, about not more than 5 minutes.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. Appreciate your time. So this project is kind of first of all, Ryan, thank you very much for the great presentation. There's just a couple things I can add. This is kind of a combination between Bergman Square, which is on that same block, as Ryan said, and the 2 townhomes that I built on the intersection of Northeast 3rd and 4th down by the fairgrounds on that triangular lot. This design is actually from the unit that's on the left. So if you drive by that unit and you see that upper porch, that design is what inspired the new design at SCHNEIDER Square. This is a little bit larger. It's about 800 square feet versus 660. It was very, very popular. When I put it on the market, I had 3 offers within a week. I think because 1, price, and 2, value. The entrances that are off of an access walkway, what I really try to do is make the people that are going to live there, I really try hard to make sure that they have their privacy so that you look out a window, you're not looking right into the next guy's window, that type of thing. So when I look at the window design, orientation, I really look at, what is their view going to be? Is it going to be obnoxious? Is it going to be, fulfilling, that type of thing? So if you look at the design, the garage is down, obviously below, walking up to the door, and there's some character with the windows, but I feel, with some landscaping, there will be more character in that walkway going to the doors as well. So that's kind of the take I have on the project. It's really exciting for me. I like to do something that's unique and creative. So this really is right up my alley.
Okay. Thank you, Jason. Any questions for Mr. Bristol from other commissioners? I'll start with
one
you.
question real quick. This is Commissioner Taylor. Just real quick on the doors, because I can't really tell from the angle. We're looking through the entry, the pergola entry, and they're, I'm assuming the doors then are just on the other side of that, facing each other from side to side. Is that true?
That's correct. They mirror up. One door would mirror up to the door of the building on the left. The right and the left would mirror up.
Oh yeah. Okay. That's what I kind of assumed was going on. I didn't know from the rules, it shows that the doors could be at a 45-degree angle. I didn't know if you guys had come up with some creative way to put an angled door toward the front of the lot. Not that it would make any difference when it's put to the back there, but I didn't know if the doors were squared up facing each other or if they were, angled toward the front of the properties. Thank you.
The idea is that the pergola is kind of the hello, you've arrived kind of a feeling, and it's the invitation to come on back, come on in, that type of thing. It's in the fact that the whole upper deck. I don't know if you've all had a chance to see the townhomes down there on the triangular lot, but the unit with that upper deck is actually pretty cool. When you're in the upstairs unit and you've got that upper deck, you look out, you're kind of like on top of everything. You feel connected with the city and the street, but you're not right on it, which is kind of pretty cool for a downtown living. So that was kind of my take. I really like that floor plan.
Any other questions? Mr. Mills?
No other questions, John. Just once again, I think it's a great project.
I think I would agree with that. Wayne, do we have any other proponents? Thank you, Jason, for your presentation. Do we have any other people that would like to speak in favor of this project? Any opponents? And since there are no opponents, I assume no rebuttal is necessary. So I'll close the meeting or the hearing on this. And if there are any other questions from other commissioners about this that you might have before we move on to making a decision. Okay, then I will entertain a motion to approve the construction of a 4-townhome subdivision on approximately 0.15 acres of land located on Northwest 3rd Avenue in an R2 high-density residential zone, SUB 20-03 Schneider Square subdivision.
I move to
Commissioner
approve.
Savory, shouldn't we have discussion? I mean, I know there's time for questions, but shouldn't the commissioners discuss?
I'm sorry.
I just wanted to
Okay.
make sure that we didn't do anything inappropriate.
Noted. I didn't mean to skip over that.
Let me just add one thing. This is Commissioner Taylor. The proposal, I actually like this proposal because I almost like this better than some of the large acreage areas that they're doing big developments in. I kind of like seeing what's going on in some of the inner city areas where we can kind of see a little bit of neat things going on there and newer sort of more modern kinds of things into city. And anyway, I don't think that's a good idea.
Any other thoughts?
I think it's a good use of infill, and I think that it's a good, sorry, my dog is messing with things. I think it's a good use of infill, and I think it's a good use of using the urban growth boundary as it was intended.
I would agree with that. Yes. Any other input? Okay.
I like the porch. That's a nice integration with the street. You know, the fact that the entrance to the unit is kind of in its own little entryway was a little bit troubling until I looked at the elevations that faced on the street, and you know, that's kind of your front porch. And you know, there's room to hang out up there, and you know, and it's actually a nicer front porch than a lot of other units, and I think it'll be a great addition to the neighborhood.
I would agree with that. I thought it was a nice, innovative design. Yeah. So now I will entertain a motion to approve SUB 20-03 Schneider Square subdivision.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I will second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Thank you very much. And we've approved that. We will now move on to consider a request to make a minor recommended amendments to the city's 2010 transportation system plan TSP. These amendments reflect a revised alignment for a connector road between the Canby Pioneer Industrial Park and State Highway 99E, which was previously planned as an extension to Otto Road, but is proposed to be an extension of South Walnut Street. So this is TA 20-02 2010 TSP amendments. So Ryan, you want to start us off with your report?
Okay, I had to unmute myself. Sorry there. Okay, so this item is a amendment to our TSP, specifically having to do with the Walnut Street extension. And this is something that we've talked a lot about as we've approved other projects. So I'm hoping you guys are excited about this as I am. So as we've discussed, over the last few years, there's been a lot of growth in our Canby Pioneer Industrial Park. And as we've approved or contemplated approving a wide range of new projects in the industrial park, which range from large manufacturing and warehousing projects to smaller spec light industrial space, it's obviously increased the need for a direct connection between our industrial park and Highway 99E. Right now, a lot of industrial traffic goes out Sequoia, which it was intended for that. But I think a lot of people in town, including our decision makers, have always had it on our wish list to have a direct link between the main body of the industrial park and the highway. So our existing adopted transportation system plan, our TSP, contemplated this. So if you read the TSP and look at the graphics and the lists of future projects, this is in there. However, as Chair Savory said, for the last couple of years, this has been shown as connecting to Auto Road, which is an existing smaller road off 99E. But for a variety of reasons, this alignment is now obsolete, and that includes considerations having to do with engineering, the topography of that area, environmental constraints. There's some wetland area between the industrial park and the highway, and then other technical considerations that include site acquisition, among other things. So the city has wanted to keep moving forward with this industrial connector road and has continued to pursue its development, only at a slightly different location. So as you saw in the technical memorandum that was prepared by our traffic consultant, there's been a couple alignments of the industrial connector road that have been contemplated over the years. Those have included the ones that are blue and red on this map that I'm showing right now. And more recently, it was the red alignment. So that was the one that was connecting Auto Road, which currently is connected to 99E, and then cutting through several parcels and connecting up with South Malino, which now has Columbia Distributing there at that intersection. So for the reasons that I've alluded to, there's a new alternative that's more realistic based on engineering, environmental, and site acquisition considerations, in addition to ODOT considerations. So ODOT, as you may be aware, is very closely manages where streets and driveways connect to their facilities. So 99E has a list of approved access points along there that include existing driveways. And what ODOT is looking for is not creating new ones. And where you are creating a connection, whether based on an existing point of access or not, that it be engineered to be an optimal distance from other operating intersections, and also ideally to consolidate driveways that are existing. So this new alignment for the industrial connector road would actually create an opportunity to consolidate a couple existing driveways that would connect onto our new industrial connector road instead of connecting directly onto Highway 99E. So that's another plus for this alignment. So this figure 7.1 is one of the figures that we refer back to the most in our adopted TSP. And this is the functional classifications for roads. So this is basically our long range plan for where we want streets to be, and then what their classification should be. And so, like a lot of other figures in the TSP, the industrial connector road is being shown on Auto Road. So this is the older alignment that was before all these other engineering factors were figured out. So this figure, amongst others, would be amended by this TSP amendment to show the industrial connector road at the new location. So the benefits of the TSP amendment would be that the new alignment for the industrial connector road would reflect all these considerations that our traffic consultant and our consulting engineer have figured out over the last couple of years. It also allows, perhaps most importantly, the city to use transportation system development charges on pursuing this project. So we want the alignment to be accurate in our TSP because that frees us up to use TSP money that that can be used on the projects that we've identified in our TSP. Another benefit is this amendment will memorialize the coordination that's been done between DKS, our engineer, the county, and ODOT. And that mostly revolves around what I was speaking about earlier, which is the points of access along 99E. And from what I've heard from DKS, ODOT's excited that we could consolidate access from several parcels along 99E onto a more centralized connector road. And then lastly, this technical memorandum is really designed to just be affixed to our TSP as an attachment. As you all know, our TSP is relatively outdated, and it's something that we plan to update in the next couple years. And so rather than go back in and fix or edit a whole string of lists and figures in this document, this technical memorandum created last year by DKS will serve as the amendment as an attachment to our TSP. And then, as you saw in the staff report, I had the little 2-page sort of intro staff report to this item, but the bulk of the analysis is in DKS's report that goes over how this amendment would change the classification and location of the roads in that area serving our industrial park. And then also it would update the list of related projects that are needed to accommodate that connector road. And that includes a list of intersection improvements, most notably, which includes our new signal that we've got at Sequoia and Hazeldale, the Fred Meyer intersection. So you could say that we've already made great progress in moving towards a roadway network that will facilitate the use of this future industrial road. And then I just wanted to go back a few slides. So if you notice the 2 empty looking fields at the bottom of the screen, the one on the right is where Columbia Distributing is now. And then the one on the left across Walnut is where the Baker West project that your body just approved a few months ago. And so I just wanted to note that both of those projects were designed to accommodate this future alignment of the industrial road, including a roundabout that would be at Southeast First and Walnut. So as you're leaving our industrial park, there would be a roundabout that connects into the industrial connector road. And so I just wanted to make that clear that we've, even in our approval of the last couple projects that are in this area, everything's been set up for the next steps for pursuing this amendment. So our planning staff recommendation is that the Planning Commission advance a recommendation of approval to City Council, because ultimately this goes to City Council. It's an amendment to our comprehensive plan, of which the TSP is a part. So we're recommending that the Planning Commission advance a recommendation of approval to City Council.
Thank you, Ryan. Any comment or discussion from commissioners directed at staff? Any questions for staff?
Mr. Chair, this is Jeff Mills. I guess want to make sure I understand why this is before us. As I understood you, Ryan, this is before us because the transportation system plan is a part of the Canby comp plan, which is a land use document. Is that correct?
Correct.
Because I'm a little confused that, why, this is really, I guess I see this as can be a land use issue, but I've never seen, this kind of thing come before me before in my experience on a planning commission where you're changing a route. So that would be my first question. And I guess I'm hearing that Canby considers this to be something that needs to be approved by a land use body as opposed to a transportation body.
Right. This was a conversation that we had with the city attorney, and in the conversation between planning staff and our city attorney, this was discussed as the way to process this, first through planning commission and ultimately to city council.
Well, I guess with that, then I have to raise concerns about the depth and quality of the report that's provided. There's a lot of arm waving in this document. And, you talk about constraints, but you don't identify them or itemize them and identify why they were rejected. So we're basically told there are a bunch of ideas that were put forth in the previous plan associated with the previous plans, but they've been overruled for technical reasons. And you've listed them out very briefly, but they're not in the document.
Sure. And I will admit that there are early pieces of this that I haven't been here before. So I don't know the full background on the evolution of the engineering of the street. So I guess the main.
Well,
go ahead.
You get where I'm going. You're asking for us to review and approve something, but you really haven't put it before us. You put before a very cursory summary of what you'd like the planning, put to the city council, but we really haven't had a chance to really, if you're asking us to do this as a land use review, I think it needs to, what are the reasons that the other plans were rejected? What were the other plans? Why are we selecting this plan? I mean, this is all, I've got a real high discomfort level for what you're asking us to do in terms of putting a stamp of approval on something that we really haven't been that involved in, or at least I haven't been, and sending it on to the city council.
I think I understand. I understand what you mean. I guess the only thing I would note is that this particular amendment, it isn't a project. It isn't a construction project necessarily. It's changing the conceptual location of a future facility at like a programmatic level.
It's not that different from zoning in that regard. I mean, zoning isn't a particular project or, like I said, land use, but there's, I'm just, I understand what this is. I think I do. I'm just concerned that we've been given enough information to make a knowledgeable decision. Mr. Chair, I want to turn this back. I hate to. I feel like I'm dominating this discussion again. I don't mean to.
No, Jeff, you forge right ahead, my friend.
Gee, Ryan, I tried to get out of it.
So this is Commissioner Tiller, and real quick, I'm just wondering, because when I read this, it looked as though that there was some constraints as to where the outlet would be in between Territorial Road and the Sequoia Parkway light that ODOT was restricting in terms of the where another main intersector could be, had to be like a half mile away, as I understand. Is that one of the reasons why this was moved?
From my understanding, that was a after the fact benefit, but I don't believe that was driving the location. This is something our consulting engineer has been working with our previous city administrators as they've refined where the alignment could go. And
okay,
so
yes, I'm sort of with Commissioner Mills on the fact that, we're kind of have this sitting in front of us, and I was actually a little bit confused myself when I was looking at this, thinking, well, where is the intersector road across 99 from the outlet of Walnut going to take place? Because when it was on Auto Road, we had a different alignment there on the other side of 99E, and there doesn't show anything there from Walnut. So does that mean there's no road that goes directly across 99 across the tracks onto the other side? There's a lot of questions.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No, there wouldn't be. This would just be an intersection that connects on the south side of 99.
Okay.
And
So,
I believe that was the conceptual concept of the auto road one as well. I wasn't aware of a connection of it going across 99, just meeting up with 99.
Oh, it looks as though there is a connector road on the other side of it when you showed that one map. So I was a little confused by that.
Right. So, okay. So are you talking about this figure 7.1 on the screen?
Correct.
Currently? Yeah. So there are a variety of things in our TSP that are out of date. And so I actually don't know the backstory of those frontage roads that were planned. That particular area that you're speaking of already has development planned for it. So there's no way Auto Road could have connected even now.
Gotcha.
So that's one of the list of items that we, the planning department and other city staff have been looking to change when we do our overhaul of our TSP. And our consultant is aware of that preliminary list. This was basically just changing the one alignment for the industrial connector road in advance of our larger package of things that we would look to change in a more comprehensive TSP update. And part of the thinking of that was our decision makers, including city council, have identified this industrial connector road as a high priority, and they didn't want it to wait on the TSP update that's coming in the future.
Well, and that's what I was wondering about too, because we as the planning body, we kind of voiced those concerns in some of our meetings prior to this in regard to some of the development that was going on back there. We were a little concerned about the traffic coming out on Sequoia. And so I think that it's a good idea that the council wants to look closely at doing something like this a little bit faster than the answers we were getting before were, it could be 5 years, it could be 10 years. We didn't know. And already I can see Columbia distributing trucks coming through Sequoia. And I have seen 3 and 4 trucks lined up there already. So I'm already concerned that this is happening very, very quick.
Sheriff Savory, may I say something?
Yep, absolutely.
So my understanding, and correct me if I don't have this right, is by amending the TSP, it's similar to like amending the code or the planning code or the overall development plan. So this is like when we went through, I want to say, gosh, like last January, and there was just a few items that we fixed in the code because they were conflicting with other items in the code. So we did that, and then we did the big overhaul of the code later. And that's similar to what's going on here, is that this is one change we're making to the TSP before we do the big overhaul to the TSP, just so it's in line with other changes that have been made and meet the transportation goals we have. Is that correct?
That's correct. And I guess the previous city administrators and previous planning directors also saw this as a minor item, because not only is it one street facility, it's one that actually has already been analyzed in the TSP. This just happens to be moving it. So this is a facility where the circulation of traffic has already been contemplated, and the truck routes overall have been contemplated with a connector road. This is just a slightly different connector road that's responding to the new information that's come about in the last couple of years.
Which, this is Chair Taylor again. Sorry, Commissioner Taylor. Sorry, I don't think that the reason that they're modifying this, though, that's the question that's kind of hanging and kind of looming there. Correct? I mean, this is what I was looking at.
This is Commissioner Hutchinson. May I have a minute?
Yes.
Just to be clear, the auto road alignment predates the current Going Great Guns corporate park, correct?
I believe it does.
So part of the deal is that what we are trying to do is accommodate the growth that we have already approved inside the corporate park, and something that's makes more sense, connecting Highway 99 and the corporate park with accommodation to the properties that are in between. I was kind of looking at it on Google Maps, and I was noticing that there's some waterways in there that everything is kind of threading in between. And so there's only so much room to move things around. And I think that's where the environmental concerns came from. I just wanted to be sure that understanding that the auto road connection was quite an old one. And if it goes back to 2010, and that is before the corporate park was actually conceived, then the realignment really makes sense.
This is Ryan. I guess I'm not familiar with the corporate park that you're speaking of. I don't know if that's a project that has a different name.
Sorry, where Columbia Distributing and everyone else is coming into. I'm sorry.
Pioneer Industrial Park.
Pioneer Industrial Park. Thank you.
Oh, right. Well, Jamie actually might be able to. I don't know if she's still on the call. She might be able to give more insight on the timing of the auto road. But I believe the Pioneer Industrial Park is from the early 80s. I think that was when that was conceptually planned.
This is Jamie Stickle. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So the Pioneer Industrial Park was master planned in 1984, but I would say that 2010 predates a lot of the investment that we've seen in that park. And one of the reasons that we started to focus on Walnut Street is it actually affects fewer property owners in that area that's, that if you're looking at the map in front of you right now, kind of where that red goes, it affects fewer property owners. And so when our previous city administrator, Rick Robinson, was here, one of the things that was done is the Urban Renewal District purchased a property across the street from Walnut Street so that we could kind of get some traction underway for planning to move that forward. So it affects fewer property owners. All of those property owners are on board and excited about the potential Walnut Street extension. Auto Road affected more property owners, and not all of them were as eager to see that road go through the way that it had been originally planned.
And this is Ryan. One thing I forgot to mention was in our conversations regarding the Caruso and Stanton projects, I know there was a lot of concern that was revolved around sending trips up and down Malino. And that's actually where the previous auto road extension would have connected to, was Malino. And so, although I think this project was kind of being planned in parallel, I think it actually responds to some of those concerns, because Walnut would actually connect into the interior of our industrial park rather than pushing vehicle trips out on that perimeter Malino Road.
Thank you for that
If
information.
makes sense.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
this is Jeff Mills. I guess my comment is you just relayed a whole bunch of information that's not in this report. A whole bunch. And that information needs to be in this document before it goes forward to the Planning Commission.
And I would agree with that. Yes.
Okay, so I think maybe we will have to decide to bring this back to you with more information, and then I'm thinking possibly bring our consulting city engineer to come speak on the pieces of it that I'm not familiar with.
This goes back, I can't remember who the previous, other than Tyler Smith was Planning Commission chair before me. And so this goes back quite a way. So this is kind of being put together like Frankenstein's monster in some ways, it looks to me. And Commissioner Mills is absolutely correct. We don't have all the information. I would like to see a more robust report. Okay.
Okay, so Lainey, I don't know if you can sign back on and advise us on the steps if we are continuing this.
You would have to pick a date certain in the future.
Okay, let's see.
Just as a note, this is Commissioner Taylor. I do like what I hear about the way that this project could lead, but I do agree that from a planning commission standpoint, it is probably, well, not even probably, but definitely imperative that we know the details surrounding this. I do like the fact that it's impacting fewer landowners. I like the fact that it's been moved as a result of somebody probably not liking the project, because we don't really want to do that as a planning commission. So those things are all things. The fact that it's moved on 99 further down, there's a lot of good things that I'm hearing. But again, like Commissioner Mills was pointing out, it's important that we have the details of these things so that we know what we're doing. Otherwise, and obviously we're going to be held under all of this if we don't have it.
So Ryan, are you looking at some dates that we can to give you enough time to do what we're asking you to do?
Yeah, I might ask Lainey to chime in again. Our next meeting is the 23rd of November, but that's also the week of Thanksgiving. But I know that we do want to keep the momentum going on this. Lainey, do you know if we have anything scheduled for November 23rd?
We have a conditional use permit by the CrossFit gym for the 23rd.
Okay, that's it?
Yes.
Okay, well, if the planning commission believes they're available, that would be the next available meeting.
Will that give you enough time?
No, no, it will not, because we would have to have the staff report ready by Friday.
That's right. So the one after that is the 14th.
14th of December, yes.
Just as a question, is this kicking this out a little too far for city council? Are they the ones that recommended this to us?
No, this was a staff decision that predated me to take it to planning commission and then city council.
It makes sense to me because it's strategic planning. And it's always subject to review at a future point. So, I mean, it seems like the kind of thing that should end up in our lap.
Yeah, well, I think to get the packet out in time, I think we would have to go to the 14th of December.
Okay. That
Do
works
we
for you
need a
guys.
motion on that, Chair Savory?
We do need a motion? Did you
We
say?
do?
I don't know if we do.
That's what I'm asking.
But let's do it anyway. I'll entertain a motion to move the request for the minor recommended amendments to the city's 2010 transportation system plan, TA 20-02 2010 TSP amendments to December 14th. Do I have somebody that wants to make that motion?
So moved, but to add in with the appropriate background information requested by various commissioners.
I second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Great. That works for you, Ryan and Laney?
Yes.
Sure, we look
Oh.
forward to bringing that back in front of you with the additional information and background.
Okay, fantastic.
And we appreciate the comments. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, next, we will consider a request to make proposed code amendments for the new microcell technology and the telecommunications facilities, TA 20-01 telecommunications facilities. So,
Chair Savory, can we take a 5-minute break?
sure, let's do.
Thanks.
5 minutes. We'll see you back here, 5 or 6 minutes. So again, this is to consider a request to make proposed code amendments for the new microcell technology in the telecommunications facilities, TA 20-01 telecommunications facilities. So Ryan, is this where you come in, or are we hearing from Eric?
This is Eric.
Okay, perfect.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
I think this is our last stop on the marathon of items. So you're going to see some familiar things here, but I wanted to make sure that we're all working from the same playbook. The reason we are bringing this to you is because of the wireless and telecommunications facilities and industry continuing to expand. There's a lot of very good data on this, and it's basically on an exponential growth curve. And that is being deployed in cities all over the world in the United States and Oregon. As part of the new demand and new technology, telecom companies are installing small or microcell installations, and they address the demand for increased capacity, speeds, and I think particularly data usage. So when you use your cell phone for basically anything but calling somebody, you're using data. And the small cell technology is intended to address that new data demand. Without bringing these text amendment and subsequent code changes to the city of Canby, we'd be left high and dry. And what that means in practice is that a telecommunications company could go to Clackamas County, submit for a building permit, or maybe not even a building permit, just an electrical permit or a mechanical permit, and we would have no review of that. And those facilities would be deployed without any standards, review, or comment from the city of Canby. So I think that's pretty important that we keep that forefront in mind, that without these text amendments, there will be no review. And the text amendments themselves, I think, are reasonable. They place time, place, and manner requirements and restrictions on how they're deployed. We've talked a lot about this in our prior work sessions, but a lot of it is to minimize visual impact, how they are physically placed in the right-of-way or on private structures, and where the ancillary or supporting equipment will go, and how tall they are, not placing them on certain historic or other items of significance like light poles, flag poles, historic structures, etc. I think, as I mentioned, a lot of this newer telecom equipment is probably going to go into the right of way, and I say probably because we're not certain how it'll actually be built out. But in other cities, this is pretty typical of what we'll see. The majority of users are, when they're using, I guess, this data, they're near the right of way, or they're at their house. So they're using their Wi-Fi network like we all are probably right now, or they're out and about and they're getting this data and wireless information when they're close to a right of way or a street. staff doesn't know to the extent of which this equipment's going to be deployed. We don't know how much and where, but it's our understanding with discussion from the city attorney that there are people waiting in the wings and telecom industry representatives waiting in the wings, wanting to start conversation about deploying some of this technology in the city of Canby. The other important component that kind of is very relevant to telecom equipment, and this might sound familiar because we've discussed this in prior work sessions, but I'm going to reiterate it, is that federal law has some pretty severe preemptions on what local jurisdictions can do in terms of regulating or outright banning telecommunications equipment. And over time, federal law has increased its preemption over the local jurisdiction's ability to basically regulate or restrict telecommunications deployment. We could have probably a whole graduate level college course on the federal laws and federalism as it relates to land use regulation, but suffice it to say that over time, local jurisdictions have steadily lost out on the ability to prohibit whether or not this equipment can be placed in their city. A lot of that was based on technology for police, fire, and emergencies, and it's kind of slowly morphed over time to include more of the commercial type wireless technology. These are the 4 big federal laws and regs that I just mentioned that have limited jurisdictions' ability to enforce restrictions on telecom equipment in their jurisdiction. Started with the Communications Act. The big, more recent ones slowly increase this or turn the screws, I guess, so to say, on the local jurisdiction. And the most recent one is the FCC small cell order, which is in large part why we're talking about this today. So the proposed changes in the text amendment in your packet have created a separate section for the development code, which is 1655. I think we like that as planning staff because it's got its own section for both staff and potential users of the code, which would be applicants. They know where to go, and it encompasses all the information they need to find. The text amendments themselves allow us to reasonably regulate deployment of telecommunications facilities. And that includes both the public rights of way, so that's your streets, sidewalks, under the right of way, so under vaults, alleyways, anything that's not real property. And then also there is some changes to how our code reads for public and private property. Some of those changes were to make them more consistent with federal regulations, but also to make them consistent with the new small cell regulations. I think that the code is at a reasonably low risk to legal challenge. And I don't think that's an avenue that City of Canby is interested in heading down. Telecommunications companies are obviously pretty well heeled, and they do have land use attorneys that will fight you if your code is too strict. And I think I think me and my colleagues in the planning department believe that we have a pretty good balance between restriction and regulations that are not super permissive, but are also not so restrictive that they in fact prohibit the deployment of telecommunications facilities, especially the small cell. And then again, they provide a suite of requirements that reduce the visual impacts, the size of the equipment, the area that it ends up landing, and then the exact location. We also updated the shot clock requirements, a colloquial term that basically gives us the amount of time from which an application hits our door to when the staff needs to render a decision. Super important, and it's a tight shot clock. We provided a standardized application and review process, so we have what I think is a pretty robust package of requirements that we'd like to see in an application. So we know that what they're saying is in the drawings and in the renderings, and a reasonable and objective staff person could review that and come to a yes, no, or maybe decision. And then as with all code, or in my opinion, all good code, it includes severability clauses that allow the code to continue living on if a small component of it would come to be determined to be unlawful or unconstitutional or otherwise challenged in court. These changes came from the national, so let me rephrase that. The code was gleaned from the National Association of Cities, the League of Oregon Cities, Oregon City, and Lane County. I think these were 4 pretty solid entities that gave a strong backbone and framework for our code, and then staff modified it so that it fits with the city of Canby. The National Association of Cities, League of Oregon Cities are both real solid, reputable organizations that help provide frameworks like these to participating jurisdictions. And Oregon, we liked Oregon City's code. Obviously, they're our neighbor. They had a pretty solid plan, and it made sense to have like a good local example. And then Lane County, I personally did some work on this when I was at Lane County. I think they have a strong telecommunications code. We saw quite a few towers, new equipment, small cell equipment come in when I was working there, and I believe that the county handled it well. So I thought there was some good information to be gleaned from there. And then, as you all are well aware, we had multiple work sessions with both the city council and the planning commission, which I think bore good fruit. I think we got a lot of good information from the planning commission and city council about how this code would be written. And there's been numerous iterations of the code that have been a byproduct of those work sessions. So the approval criteria for an amendment to the text of title is found in 16.88.170. Subsection A speaks to the authorization to initiate an amendment. In this case, city staff is the party that is initiating an amendment. There's some other details about third parties or other persons, but that's not applicable in this situation. So let me backtrack just a bit. So these are the criteria, pretty basic criteria for approving a text amendment. The part that I don't think is necessarily well encompassed in this particular portion of the code is the actual context of everything we just discussed. So those are two separate things that you as the planning commission will have to decide when making a decision on whether to recommend approval or not to the city council. So back to B, there's an application and a fee required. As this was staff initiated amendment, we made the application ourselves and did not pay a fee because it's through the city itself. We are having a public hearing on this amendment right now. And should it go forward, we will have two more, a first and second reading at city council. We've had 5 work sessions to date, so that will make for a grand total of 8 public hearings. I think that's, I feel confident about that. As a plug, I'll mention that we did reach out to other folks about this item outside of the normal noticing requirements, and that was recommended in some of our prior meetings, and that's an extra step we took to get this out there to the public. The last subsection D are the standards and criteria. And I think this is where the rubber hits the road on the actual code criteria. So the first one is the comprehensive plan of the city, the plans of the county, state, and local districts, and in order to preserve functions and local aspects of land conservation and development. I think we believe that this is not only consistent with the comprehensive plan of the city, it meets some of the goals that are stated specifically around public facilities, but they also are consistent with state functions. And that's part of the reason why we glean this from already vetted organizations like the National League of Oregon Cities and our National League of Cities and the League of Oregon Cities. There is a public need for change in this instance, and I think I've mentioned this. We've got the ever-evolving telecommunications industry, and this is the city of Canby's chance to adapt appropriately so that the public is, public is somewhat protected in that we're reviewing these new deployments and we have a chance to make sure that they're consistent with the code as written. And the third item and third criteria is whether the proposed change will serve the public need better than any other change which might be expected to be made. I would contend that this is a good text amendment product, and the only other feasible change that could be made would be doing nothing. And I don't think that that's a good outlook personally. Criteria 4 is whether the change will preserve and protect the health, safety, and general welfare of the residents in the community. I think we do that in this code to the extent possible that it allows us to under federal law. We do have noise requirements. We do have requirements about how this goes in the right of way. We do make sure that the equipment is meeting industry standards. And we also put some of that onus back on the applicant by having their engineer stamp and sign off saying that this equipment is safe. And the final component is that it is consistent with statewide planning goals. on a review of the statewide planning goals, I'm not sure how super applicable they are to this particular text amendment. I do think employment and energy come into play here, but I would say that they are consistent with statewide planning goals and are not out of bounds. Statewide planning goals are pretty overarching requirements that are not directly applicable to this text amendment. So this is my last slide, is that staff contends that based on the findings and conclusions presented in this report, any public comments that were to be received at the public hearing, that we as staff recommend the Planning Commission advance a recommendation of approval to the City Council for text amendment TA 2001. And with that, I will hand it back over to Chair Savory for questions and discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. That's a great presentation. Any questions? Let's start with Mr. Mills.
John, I have no questions. I only would like to again compliment the staff on the work on this amendment. I think we've spent a fair amount of time going over the text of the new section 1655. I note that staff has changed about 10 or so other texts in 10 or so other sections of the code to make everything consistent. So there was a lot of, not to belittle it at all, a lot of bookkeeping and consistency work that they've had to do to make the document whole. And we haven't spent a lot of time going over those changes, but I'm not concerned about that. I think the bulk of our attention was spent where it should have been, which was on the new 1655 section. So no questions, only a comment that I think it's a lot of good work.
I would agree. Jason, do you have any thoughts on this?
So one of the things that I was sort of thinking about, and I don't know if there's an answer to this really, but Eric, do we know how far and wide these small cell units will be in the city of, is it just within city of Canby proper? Does it apply to neighborhoods that have homeowners associations within them? There's no overhead lines in a lot of these different subdivisions. So it's applicable to any of these particular areas?
That's a great question. And here is my thinking on this, is that when we first started looking at this, I thought there's a lot of direction focused on the public right of way. And in my experience, and this is actually helpful in my experience with Lane County, is that I found that a lot of this equipment actually ends up on private property. And the reason for that is the telecommunications companies want to get it where it's easiest. So if they can approach a landowner and say, we'd like to construct a tower on your property and we'll pay you $10,000 a year for 500 square foot lease area, some people will do that. And this code captures those instances. So part of my answer there is that this code anticipates that. And the other part of my answer is I'm not really sure. My thought is that, so the telecommunications companies are going to go for the low hanging fruit, which is going to be the easiest areas with the most dense usage. And I think that's likely to be kind of in Canby's downtown core areas, which in that case, I think we would see deployment in the public right of way. So on existing power infrastructure or building rooftops potentially. I'm not really sure if I kind of hesitate to prognosticate about where it would land, but I think it is fair to say that telecommunications companies search for the low hanging fruit first, which is, just wise business right there. But there is a potential, I'd suppose, that it could go out into the further areas of subdivisions, and that'll be a return on investment type calculation for a telecom company. But I would expect that most of this will land in the more core areas of the city of Canby. I think that answers your question. If it doesn't, I'll elaborate.
Yeah. So, is that your experience with these type of? You said you dealt with. Is that something they've done there? It's mostly in the downtown sections.
Yeah. So in my experience in the larger unincorporated areas of Lane County, which there are many, they seek to deploy it where people are going to use it. So I would anticipate that it would go in the core areas again, but you don't really know until they're here. And that's partly why we want to make sure we've got a good code that is ready to deal with all potentialities.
Does that answer your question, Jason?
Yeah, I'm thinking about it, but yes, kind of.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I wish.
I mean, we all have, obviously, it's just like a giant question mark, right? And it's kind of like we're trying to anticipate something that we have little to no experience with. And this is kind of across the board, no matter what city and state you go to. But I mean, because it's just kind of coming upon us all at once. I just don't know what it's going to look like to, for example, a homeowners association where they have some particular rules and things that are going on within their neighborhoods, and to have some company come in and start constructing something, and hey, the city planning commission and the city council said this was what we can do, and gosh, it was outside of our ability to fight against it, so I guess this is going to have to happen. I mean, I can just see the anger down the road that I don't want to deal with, and so I'm a little concerned in that.
Well, I'll say this is that if we remove the word telecommunications equipment and say anything, say Project X is going into a homeowners association, if it's allowed by code but not by the HOA rules, that's up to the HOA to bring a civil action or any other punitive measure against that particular homeowner. The local code will almost always trump an HOA's rules.
Correct.
So
and I guess, but it's not about that as much as it's the spirit of the law, I guess.
I understand where you're coming from. In truth, it is frustrating as a land use planner to basically, a lot of the tools, so to speak, have been removed from the equation via federal law. And we're basically left with giving you the best anticipation and set of reasonable regulations possible so that we're not left high and dry with this equipment just being deployed however the telecommunications company likes. And that's that balance, I think. Hopefully that eases some of your concern, but I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah, thank you. I think there's still stuff that's rolling around in my mind on it. So, I just don't know. Again, I think there's a lot of big question marks here for all of us. And we just don't know until we see it, I guess.
Okay, Jennifer, what's your thinking?
From what I'm hearing and seeing, we are doing the best we can with the information we have. And also, we've advertised these hearings repeatedly. This is what, our 5th conversation about this between us and the joint session with the city council. And I've not really seen anybody show up to say anything about it. So, it's, if people are upset about what we've decided to do, they had opportunities to speak. They had opportunities to contact us via email, and we really haven't seen any of that.
Yeah.
So, I think that we're doing what we can with the information we have. I think that Eric has done an excellent job of putting all of this together in a succinct manner and researching everything that, he can. So, I think that we've done our due diligence.
I would totally agree.
Yeah, Commissioner Taylor, I do appreciate that. I didn't want to come off as too rash there. I do appreciate that you kind of spiraled out and wanted to communicate with and get this out a little bit further to people. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah. Michael, Commissioner Hutchinson, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think that within the flexibility that's allowed us by federal law, we've made the regulations that we're capable of making so that this equipment that's, that is coming one way or another isn't too offensive in its application. I'm interested to see. I really don't think that even with a change of administration and a change in the character of Ajit Pai, and I think there's going to be actually more buy-in to 5G. I think that with things stabilizing, that we're going to see more of this, and the people are going to believe what they want to believe about it, but it's coming to stream movies to you soon. And just like I said at the very beginning of this conversation, despite how I feel about its application locally, I'm really excited to see where it goes.
Thank you. I would agree. Eric, you've done a fantastic job, you and your team. And I think I agree with Jennifer. We've done the best with the information that we've had made available to us. I have not heard anything from the public regarding this, although it's been put out there for them for quite some time and many times over. So again, I think you've done a great job. So I think that at this point we need to entertain a motion to approve the code amendments for the new microcell technology and telecommunications facilities TA20-01.
I may as well go for the trifecta and say, so moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second. This is Commissioner Mills.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, opposed. Okay, thank you very much. We're all done on that. Let's move along. So for final decisions, we'll start with the Schneider Square subdivision final findings, SUB 20-03. This is our final version of this and from our previous oral discussions. And so I will entertain a motion, Jennifer, to approve the Schneider Square subdivision final findings, SUB 20-03.
So moved. My mute button wouldn't turn off.
Do you have a second?
I'll second.
Yeah, this is Jeff. Go ahead.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay. Then on TA 20-02 2010 Transportation System Plan Amendments, we are postponing that or putting that off until December 14th. Do we need any kind of,
I don't think we do a motion on that.
yeah, I don't think so either. But on TA 20-01 Telecommunications Facilities, which we just discussed, I will entertain a motion to approve that.
So moved.
So moved.
And
You got two there, John.
Okay, gosh. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Hey,
Okay. Thank you.
Aye.
And so that's that. Do we have any items of interest, Ryan, from the planning staff?
Not at this time, no.
So just our next meeting will be Monday, November 23rd, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Any items of interest or guidance from other commissioners? Okay, then I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, second. All in favor, say aye.
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 We are adjourned. Thank you
Thank
very
you, everyone.
much. Thank you, and we'll hear from everybody just before Thanksgiving. So if anybody's not going to be there, have a happy Thanksgiving.
I will not be at that meeting.